Okay, so this is a short tutorial using Revit 2014 to make some very basic concept masses so that we can explore form easier and ultimately be more creative using Revit. So let me just jump in here and I'll just take you through this process. Using some very simple helpers developed as generic models inserted into a in-place mass in project mode, and then cladding that up with a simple wall. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is create a new family. It is a generic model adaptive family. I use these a lot simply because we've got the adaptive point component that we can use should the needs arise. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a point hosted on the reference plane. Then I am going to duplicate that reference plane simply by cloning it, holding down Shift and Control and moving. And you'll see it creates another reference plane. And then I'm going to put simply a reference point hosted on that reference plane and aligning it up with its counterpart below. Select both, create a line between the two. Now you will see that those two worlds are quite nicely linked together. So flipping into a front view, I'm just going to parameterize that. So create aligned dimension, just like that. And I'm going to give it a instance parameter so we can report it in project mode. Call it H1 simply. Okay. Okay, and that's our first little helper made. So I'm going to make a new project to load that into. Bother with template. Templates bring in all sorts of unnecessary things. I'm going to change my units, just type UN for units, to millimeters. Who uses millimeters? We don't know. I'm going to create a simple mass. I'm going to give myself some sort of scale just by drawing a very simple box. Creating a new default 3D. Okay. And here we are in our mass family with a simple square. So flicking back to my first little helper, I'm going to load that in. I'm hosting him. I'm going to host him on a work plane for now, just so we get him into family. Okay, there he is. Now I'm going to go and make another helper. So new family, generic model. No, not generic model. Generic model adaptive. Sorry. Then we go reference point again. This time, sorry, I'm going to put him on this plane. So reference point. Always worth your while getting used to using reference planes. They are your friend. Bring him down there like that. Just want to get him into the crosshairs of this world. Again, it just helps in terms of parameterization if we want to do that later. And I'm going to duplicate this using Shift and Control again. And I'm going to create a reference point on that plane. Incidentally, just as an aside, if you want to post something onto a plane, first select the plane, then draw the entity, and lo and behold, it will host to that. So we're going to do the same thing again. Still from there like that. Draw a line, so just thump spline over there and it'll draw a line between the two. And we're going to go into a top view. Sorry, not ceiling. floor planable, and we're going to parameterize that. So create align dimension, modify, select, label, add parameter, I'm going to call it D2. Instance, so it reports within the family. Just going to kill some of these views in the background and load it. Project 6. Okay, and now what you'll see is I now have a vertical stick and a horizontal stick. Now I'm just going to do this like I normally do it. I'm sure lots of other people could do it different ways, but bear with me. I think this one works for me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to draw a quick spline, host it on the work plane, and I'm going to divide that spline, divide path. Oh, let's make it 15 long, and I'm going to select my vertical, right click. Actually, I think I'm going to try doing this and see if it works. So I'm going to host it on that point, then select this. I'm going to pattern. Yes, I thought that may not work actually. No, you have to go into your family stack. To generic models, family 7, create instance. And that should host, that should host on our point. You haven't. Hang on a second. Okay, sorry about that. Slight interlude. Yeah, so I had a little bit of an issue that they weren't hosting properly, and I forgot this step. Just make sure that whenever you're creating these little helper families that you always click always vertical, which is always important because when you host it into the project, you want it to appear as it appears in the family, which is vertical. So I'll go back to my project again and hit create instance, yes, and I'm going to host that onto this point, and I'm going to select that entity, and then I'm going to select my divided point, and I'm going to thump the pattern button. Now this is a new thing. I think it came in 2013 or 14. It's essentially a very clever replication machine for families hosted on divided lines. So we'll hit that and you'll see it's created this marvelous thing. And obviously you move your points around as you create down your spline, and it does all sorts of wonderful things. And you can come in and you can change the array to 25 and it makes more of them. I'm being lazy this evening and I'm limited for time, so I'm going to make a few rather than more. Then I'm going to come along and grab my horizontal family, create instance, and I'm just going to chuck it around here. You'll see it orientates because I've got to set it to vertical on placement. It's going to be all the same orientation. Okay. Then the purpose of this tutorial is really just to create random solids, or introduce you to how to create kind of random solids and shapes. But what we can do now is we can just come in here and kind of go crazy with where we want these things to be. Best way to sort of visualize this in your own head might be a whole bunch of guys standing on a fishing pier with their fishing rods and their fishing lines, and they're going to catch a random parametric form. Sorry if that sounds incredibly cheesy, but it is late in the evening here. I am tired. So, let me just maybe make something that resembles something we might all use in the world. I'm going to reparameterize these things so they're a little shorter in a minute. One of the things you'll notice sometimes these hosted families go a little bit crazy on rotation. Don't ask me why, ask Autodesk. So you'll see I parameterized those earlier. I'm just going to reduce them down so we can trace a spline along there. Oops, missed one. Go away, shoot. And rotate that one. And you can see it is kind of going spastic. Rotate please to where I want you to be. Rotate that one, a little bit more. Okay. So now these little guys sort of lined up with their fishing rods. So what I'm going to do next is very simply create a reference spline. Turn on your face so it hosts. Do, 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 do. And the next thing we're going to do is select all of them like that. Hold down Shift and Control, move, and clone. Okay. Finesse. Then we can just go and go crazy. So really all I'm trying to demonstrate here is a very simple way of creating these little helpers to give you what you might want, which is a kind of funky shape half the time to impress clients. Amuse your friends, confuse your enemies, etc., etc. So you'll notice sometimes this goes a little bit crazy on the rotation down here, but you can always just come back in and fix it. Obviously the more complexity you drag into this thing, the harder it'll be to generate certain solids. The Revit API really doesn't, well, the Revit API will absolutely do anything, you know, short of make tea. But when you come to hosting things, you know, real world things like walls and roofs and other really boring things, you'll find it just won't do it. And I'll leave that up to Autodesk to explain. But in terms of mass mode, you can more or less do anything you want. So I'm going to make a form here in a minute. Just tidy these up. Just a lot of experience has taught me to be respectful and not go too crazy. And I just want this to work this evening rather than fail. But it can fail, is what I'm trying to say. So creating a loft, 1, 2, 3, create form. And you'll see it's created this amazing, wow, look at me, shape. Okay, so someone might come into the room. Oh no, it only creates, there's only 2D geometry in there. Damn. Ignoring said warning, we can go ahead and put a wall on that. So wall by face. Obviously choosing the more simple wall you choose, the better. Here's my basic wall 1. And you'll see it's created a wall. Huzzah. What an amazing thing. So, someone else might come into the room and go, hey, you wanna make that a little taller, a little shorter? You know, for no real reason. And because you built it in this manner, you can just come in here and grab a point. Don't forget these are hosted on here, so they can go in that direction too. Yeah, so the sky's the limit, really. I mean, I've just done a couple of really simple helpers to achieve this, but there's nothing to stop you going in and being much more complex about the nature and the mathematics of the controllers of things like this. You can do rotations, you can put in equations, you can balance one against the other, you can go nuts. In fact, there's some great tutorials online from various Autodesk developers who've come up with some great iterative helper families that they use all the time. And I should mention that's one thing that you will enjoy with this method, is that you create these things and you'll use them again and again and again. And eventually you'll have a stack of maybe 20 or 30 of them that will just define everything possible to one's imagination, like I do. But I'm not going to show you all my little ones. I really would rather people just did them themselves, because through change comes innovation. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this, and have fun modeling and going crazy.